Hey guys, it's Emily from Novell Novels and welcome to today's video. This is my Paige Toon books ranking, whatever, I'm not sure exactly. Now, I know this may not be like the most popular video, but I decided that, actually I spoke to the lovely Alice from the Alice and Giant Bookshelf, and when I was thinking about video suggestions, videos that are me and ones that I thought would be fun to make. And you all know, my favourite author ever is Paige Toon. Not only does she write the best contemporary books I've ever read, Heidi Swain's a very close second, but she recently had a book out and it's my favourite. Now, last year and the year before she did a read-along of all her books and I reread some of them. She is the author that, just to give you a bit of an introduction, Paige Toon is an author I started on probably about 4 or 5 years ago, when my knee was bad. My sister Vicky decided she said that she's always loved Paige Toon and she had all the books, so she was the author that she was like, oh, I think you're going to really like this, it's good contemporary books, and she started me reading them. I didn't read them in a particular order, but there was something about her books that I loved. Now basically every time I've picked up a book, one of hers, I've loved it. They're all 5 stars in my opinion, so although this is a ranking, it's basically based on the fact that the books that have really stuck in my mind, the ones that have really sort of got to me, the ones that have really done this. And then this is not in a publication order. What I will try and do, I'm aiming that at the end of this video, I'm going to link the pictures of the rankings of her books, of the order that she published them in, because that was how she did her read along. So I've got those pictures hopefully on Instagram and I can actually put them in at the end of the video, but that does mean the video is not going to be too long. I won't give spoilers, so I'll give sort of very brief but good sort of storyline basis for each book. I wonder, those of you that know me, and those of you that know the Paige Toon books, do you know what will be in my top 3? I would love to know. Obviously I've already given a little hint that her newest book is going to be in that, but is there any of her other books that you think are going to be in the top 3? Now, this is the honourable mention, I've not included her short stories. So I've got one of her books that's the short stories, and this is One Perfect Christmas and Other Stories, and this contains lots of short stories, but you cannot read this until you've read most of her other books because it does contain spoilers. But I love this. I love reading her short stories. I would love it if she did another one of these, because that's almost like a sort of sequels and extra bits on all the books. Now, one of the things that I love a lot about Paige Toon is that most of her books have, in fact all of them bar one, have books from other books in them. So you will always look out for a returning character. I'm not going to tell you who returns in any of these books because that again is a spoiler, and I think for me, what is it called? Charlie from Charles Heathcote, he described it, there's little Easter eggs. This is what Charlie said, they're Easter eggs, and Charlie's another author that does that. He has Easter eggs, so he has books from other books in, all connecting, and I love that. That's one of the Charlie things that I've absolutely loved, and I loved it when I read his An Heir to Murder and saw characters from other books, and I was like, oh, I loved it. I love looking for Easter eggs. So when you're reading these, look for the Easter eggs. You don't have to read them in order. Like I said, this ranking is not in order, but to me, when I reread them, I definitely think I got more out of them rereading them in order, because like I said, I knew some of the characters and I knew what I was looking for. Another thing I will say is that she's got a YA series of 3 books in this series, which is The Accidental Life of Jessie Jefferson. There are 3 books in this series. It's a YA series, so I've not included that in the rankings, but this is Jessie Jefferson. But you cannot read these YA books until you've read Johnny Be Good, because her dad is Johnny Jefferson. Although that's not a spoiler because that's kind of included in, I think, another one of the books. So yeah, that's a bit of a spoiler, but she has this book series, but I'm not including that in the rankings because it's a trilogy and you need to have read the Johnny Be Good series. So I don't want this video to be too long, and I will say that I've loved each and every one of these books. But do you want me to rank other authors? So I've read a lot of Bridget Kemener's books. I've read most of her books apart from the Elemental series. I've also read all of Heidi Swain's books, and I've got them. I think I've got a few other authors that I've got Elaine Everest. I've got all of her books. Do you want me to rank those books? Would you like, if you'd like me to do that, please let me know in the comments down below. That would be good feedback. But let's get on with it. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 books that are ranked, and some of them, I think for me, the ranking is very loose. The top, I would say, top 5 are the ones that are my definite favourites, and that is a very solid ranking. The rest of these are, depending on the mood, depending on what I think. Now, actually, the lowest ranking book is actually one of our newer books that I bought full price, and I've read it twice, but it wasn't one that really jumped out at me. It wasn't one of my favourite books, but it's still very good. Don't get me wrong, like I said, I can't put Paige Toon's writing down, but it wasn't one that captured my heart as much. And this is about Angie, who basically, I don't even need to read the synopsis. At the start of this book, her grandmother dies, and she goes and finds her long lost father that she didn't know anything about. She goes to Italy, and the Italy setting's really good, and she meets a guy, and it is a really good book. Most of it is set in Italy, but it's very there's this guy who is a real risk taker, and when you find out why, you understand, and he's lovely. And Angie's a good character, but she's not one of my favourite of the protagonists. So I do love the way she's goes off to Italy and finds her father, and that sort of bond, and that is good, and this is a good book, but it was probably one that I least connected to. But it's probably one I might need to reread more than twice. So that one I've read twice. Lucy in the Sky, I believe I read twice. This is Lucy in the Sky is, I think, one of our earliest books. And this is about a lawyer, a surfer, a 24-hour flight. It's been 9 years since Lucy left Australia. 9 years since she's seen her best friends, Molly and Sam. And now 2 of her friends are getting married, each to each one of each other. And Lucy is on her way back to Sydney for the wedding. And she's happily settled down with James, her boyfriend. And this has a bit of a cheating element in it, which is what I probably found hard. I like the fact that Lucy, we go back to one of my favourite books. I'm not giving you a sneak. When she goes back to Australia, I love the Australia settings. I love that in this book you meet quite a few books from other books, but it's not one I've sort of remembered. I think it was one of the last books of hers that I read for the first time. It's again not one I've connected with as much, so I'm intrigued. I think probably the cheating element and the whole one push of a button and the world comes crashing down, that was one that didn't necessarily connect with me as much. But again, it's really good. The next one is 13 Weddings, and probably my only real issue with that is that not being married and being desperate to get married. I found that a bit hard. But again, you've got sometimes you have to step out of the light to see again. Bronte never expected to see Alex after their one night together, but she never stopped thinking about him. So when she arrives at work one day to find Alex as a new boss, the only problem is that Alex is now engaged to the girl that he met when they were on a break. And this is really good. I like Bronte in this, and I like, again, this one's mainly set in the UK. But Alex is a character annoyed the hell out of me. But this is one that if you like weddings and if you like photography, and this is the main character's a photographer, and she's takes lots of pictures of people getting married. But this is again really, really good. And Bronte was a character I definitely liked more, but I think Alex is a bit of a knob cheese, so that's probably what put that lower in the rankings. But again, I did love it. Now the rest of these are ones I really loved, but again, it's on a good day and a bad day, it's just trying to pick the order. But Chasing Daisy is, I think, her second book, and I love this one. I really did enjoy this. It's set on a race tracks, and they go all over, and there is a connection. There is an Easter egg definitely in this. Again, even though I think it was her second book, so you can definitely see how her writing evolved over the whole books. I think that's probably why a lot of her older books are some of the lower rating ones. But this one is really good. I love Daisy Rogers, and she meets the man of her dreams, William Trust, on the racetracks, and she goes from Melbourne to Monte Carlo to Sao Paulo to Singapore with her best friend Holly. And I did love the whole travelling around. I don't know anything about motor racing, and there were some really risky bits in this and some bits where I was like, what? But there is a guy in this that's quite saucy, a bit of a crush on him. but he's not the one you would expect me to. So actually, those of you that know me would expect the one that I've always for. But if you fall too fast, you might just crash. If you like sort of racing, if you like travelling, if you like the whole like entertainment industry, this one's really good for that. So that's what I liked about that. The next one, The Longest Holiday. This is actually connected to another book. Oh, that's kind of a spoiler. Laura has been married to the man of her dream for 7 months, but a week before the wedding, Matthew made a terrible mistake. Escaping the humiliation that is her marriage, Laura goes off to Key West, and she goes on a very long holiday and with her best friend Marty. A carefree holiday full of cocktails and fun. Great sounding airplane just when I'm filming. This is Dad's way of having a laugh at me. But the distraction comes in the form of a sexy Cuban scuba diver, Leo. And Laura's instant attraction to him knocks her flying and she falls hard. Laura doesn't want to go home though. And this is again a really good book. I did enjoy it. The holiday was really good. This is set obviously in the Florida Key West. I don't know much about that over there. It's a really good book. And Laura's a character that you really grow for. But you feel for Laura in this because what happened with her marriage and stuff, it is a real heartbreaker. And I do like Marty, her best friend. I think that's really fun. And that friendship element's really good. But I don't know why I didn't fall for... Leo's character's alright, but he's not one of my sexy crushes that I get on books, and I really do get crushes on books in this. Now, the next one, 5 years from now, is the only one that doesn't have characters from all the other books. And I will say this one, even though it's lower ranked, it is one of the books that absolutely friggin' broke my heart and made me sob. This is one of her ones that made me sob so hard. And the ending's not what I expected it to be, and I didn't get the end, and I was like, oh my god, and I was rooting for the characters. And this is about two characters, Nell and Van, and they meet as children when their parents fall in love, but soon their worlds are forced worlds apart. 5 years later they find each other, their bond is rekindled and new feelings take hold, but once again they must separate. And for the next 2 decades, fate brings Nell and Van together every 4 years, as life and circumstances continue to divide them. Will they ever find their happy ever after? This is a friggin' heartbreaker. This one will literally rip you to flipping shreds. But again, it is really, really, really good. But I think probably the reason why it's not like in the top 5 is because it's not got the characters. But I don't know. I also don't know. But this is so good. I love this so much. And I did like Nell and Van, and I found it quite good. This one's mainly set in the UK. That has connections to Australia, so that's quite a good one. The next one is another one that literally broke my heart. Actually, I've changed my mind. I've changed my mind on the rankings. Actually, that goes higher than that one. So I've just changed my mind already. I told you I could change my mind from day to day. Pictures of Lily, which I think is her first book. First or third. It's either the first or the third book. Will You Marry Me? I think it's definitely the first one. And even though it's the first one, it's actually higher in the rankings. That's really weird, isn't it? But Pictures of Lily, this one is a heart melter. Not a heartbreaker, it's a heart melter. I think of you, when I think of you every day, but usually in the quietest part of the morning or the darkest part of the night. Not when my boyfriend of 2 years has proposed. I look up with Richard in his hopeful eyes. Lily, he prompts, it's been 10 years, but it only felt like yesterday that you left. How can I say yes to Richard when my heart belongs to you? 10 years ago, when Lily was just 16, she fell in love with someone she really shouldn't have. Now living in Sydney and engaged to another man, she can't forget the one that got away. Oh my god, this is her first book, but oh my god, it is one of the best. The romance in this is so sweet, it's so good, and there are bits of this where your heart goes mushy and you just love. Lily is one of my favourite lead characters. She is so sweet, and she comes up in so many of the books, and oh my god, I love her. It's a proper sweetie. You can definitely tell it was Paige Toon's early works because her writing has changed and developed. And this is a proper smushy contemporary. But it's smush on the highest level. If you want that book that's going to make you go, oh, hugging a book, and just smushy and lovey and just cozy and read at night, it's just sweetie book. I love it. Then the next one is another one that ripped me to shreds. This one will flipping break your heart, send you into catapulting places, and it will kill you. But it's amazing. It's about 3 sisters. No, this one's not about 3 sisters. Oh, that's another one. Oh, no, that's another one. Oh, I changed mine. The other one about sisters, that was a breaking one. Sorry, my brain's gone. This is the last piece of my heart. This one, oh yeah, this is another one that sent me mushy. Not as bad as the other one, but yeah, this is really good. When life feels like a puzzle, sometimes it's small pieces. A successful travel journalist, Bridget, has ambitions. Right, so Bridget, yeah, she's a writer. She's another one from other characters. And she basically goes off to this place, the coast, I think, to complete a book from a novelist who died very suddenly. This novelist left a baby and a husband. She died of an aneurysm, and she was halfway through writing her book. And Bridget goes to write this book, and she meets Nicole's husband, Charlie. And oh my God, I love Charlie. Charlie's like one of the greatest male characters in all her books. Loved Charlie so much. And Charlie's a single dad bringing up their baby on her own. It's a real little baby, and if you like kids, and there is more to the kids, and there is other characters in this that come up, and I love Bridget. Bridget is such a great character, and she is one you fall in love with, and the coastal elements, the setting in this is so vivid, and she really makes you believe you're actually in this location when you're reading this book, and oh my God, I loved it. Yes, I thought it was the other one, but God, that was so good. I loved that one so much. Now, the next one is one of my favourites. We're getting closer to my top 5. One Perfect Summer, and this has one of the best, sexiest books ever. Sexiest characters ever. Basically, when we start this book, Joe went in the past. So Alice is 18 and she's going off to start university. Joe's life is going nowhere. A Dorset summer, a chance meeting, and the two of them fall in step. And then something happens and they get pulled apart, and Alice heads off to Cambridge and she meets Lucas, who is one of the baddest boys. I don't know if that's a spoiler, but God, I hated him. And then years later, at the wrong time, Joe comes back and he's out of reach, and Joe is one of the sexiest characters. I've got a thing about bad boys, haven't I? What have I like? Poor Chris. But this is one that sets in my heart. It goes over quite a long period of time, this book, and it sort of starts with them young and it goes on to their older. And I love the fact that they've got these characters come up in other books. They come up in quite a lot of their other books, and I flipping loved this. So yeah, that is amazing. Then the next one is the one that literally, actually I've changed my mind. I'm changing my mind about the order again. Keep doing that. The top 5 haven't changed, but I've got the next 2. So this next one is the one that I love. Danny from Danny's Book World sent it to me, and I wanted my own copy of it. So this one is actually again a very emotional book. At the start of the book, we find out Amber was 3 when a car crash stole her mother's life. That bit alone kills me because I've seen my own car crash. And she doesn't remember the accident, but a stranger at the scene has been unable to forget. Now, almost 30 years later, she's trying to track Amber down. Amber, meanwhile, is married to Ned and living on the other side of the world in London. When her father has a stroke, she flies back to Australia to be with him. Away from her husband, Amber finds comfort in her oldest friends, but her feelings for Ethan, the gorgeous green-eyed man she once fell for, have never been platonic. And they get closer, and then things happen, and it is a really, really good book. I love this book. The Sun in Our Eyes really gets you because it makes you think about how different events can change you, how circumstances and stuff. Really, really good book. But this next one is definitely 6th place. This is like one that I cannot forget. It had to be right high up in the top, almost could have been in the top 5, but it's narrowly missed it. And this is about 3 sisters, and they're triplets as well. They're not just sisters, they're triplets. You know, I've got to think about sisters, but this is about triplets: Phoebe, Eliza and Rose. And they're very, very different, and this is their storyline. They all fall for the same guy, but different times. And Phoebe is caught between a rock and a hard place: settle down and get married, or return to the French Alps to pursue her passion. Eliza is in love with someone who's no longer hers. In fact, he probably never was, and the dream of becoming a successful musician seems to be vanishing before her eyes. Rose is out of a job and out of a boyfriend, and to make matters worse, she's been forced to move back with her mother. 3 different girls have one thing in common: Angus, the one they fell in love with. Be prepared to be shattered into a million flipping pieces. It does make you think about, like, even though I'm not one of a triplet, I've got 2 very different sisters, and Charlie and Vicky are very different, and I'm very different from Charlie. Charlie's channel, obviously, she's my best friend. But even though the 3 of us are very different, we are so ridiculously close. Like, they are my best friends. Even though me and Vicky don't talk every day, me and Charlie talk like 3 times a day. But those relationships change. There's sometimes when I'm closer to one than I am to the other, but we have so much in common. And believe it or not, Vicky had a crush on Chris in the very early days. Very, very early days. This is like in our first year. But we don't tend to go for the same guy. But if we would, God knows, I don't know how that would have affected things. But this is a book that will set your heart on fire. And, oh my God, Angus is a great guy. But I love the sister bonds more than anything. And I love the fact, even though they fight, they are ridiculously close. Now to my top 5. I don't want this video, this is going to be longer than I wanted. Baby Be Mine is at number 5. It is the only book that is a sequel to another book. The sequel is Johnny Be Good, so it's the one you have to read this. This is the only one you have to read after reading Johnny Be Good. You cannot read this before that. You just can't. But it had to be in the top 5 because it's got my favourite male character, the best looking. Oh. It's like Johnny Be Good is just, oh yeah, I'll talk about that. That's a bit higher in the rankings. But this is the sequel, and basically I can't really tell you too much about this one because it is a sequel. But Meg is terrified. She lives in the south of France with someone else. I can't tell you who, and I really cannot tell you hardly any about this book. But it's about Meg, and it's the sequel to Johnny Be Good. And if you love Johnny Be Good, you will love this. And this gives you the right... It needed to happen. This is the only book that needed to be the sequel because Johnny Be Good ended on a way that you had to have another book to find out more because it didn't end on the right way. But yeah, success. All I can say is this is amazing. If you like, but you have to read it after Johnny Be Good, so I can't tell you any more about that. But the next one is one of her earliest books. And it was one I loved. I fell in love with it, and it, to be honest, I didn't think it was my favourite for such a long. It was my second favourite for such a long time. And this is The Minute I Saw You by Paige Toon, and oh my God, this is set in Cambridge again, and it's about a character that works in opticians. And obviously, I connected to that. That's my job. I work in opticians, and Hannah is one of the loveliest characters. Again, she's such a lovely lead character, and I actually reached out to Paige Toon and said she actually got my job, she got that down to a T, and she described that really well. And I think for me, that was the fact that she portrayed that really well is amazing. And she meets Sonny, who is irresistibly she's drawn to, and I love Sonny. Sonny's another great male character, and she falls for them. They don't do long-term relationships, they don't do that, but God, they fall for each other. But there is a lot of other stuff that is in this, and it does tackle depression and a lot of other issues, and it does it really well. Paige Toon, this is one of her newest book, I think. Yeah, it's her third newest if you go back in that way. But oh my God, it's amazing. Set in Cambridge, and it's set by the river, and it's... Oh, I love this. I think it was an amazing book, and how... excuse me. It just got me. I loved it. I love the optician setting. I loved again the locations. I loved Hannah and Sonny. I loved their friends. I just thought it was such an amazing book. But this is my third favourite, even though it's actually the next book is my third favourite, but it's the one I've read the most of. It's the one I've read so many times, and I will be reading it again probably. I may even read it next year. I may even read it again this year because I can read it a million times and never stop reading it. It's probably up there in my favourite books of all time. But it's not my favourite Paige Toon, if that makes sense. And this is Johnny Be Good by Paige Toon. It is, I think, if you don't count A Curse of Dark and Lonely or Wuthering Heights, it's probably my most read book. Because it has the ultimate bad boy. Johnny is like Robbie Williams of his decade. He is the ultimate bad boy rock star. And oh my God, I had a thing for Robbie in the old days. I don't think he's good looking now, but God, I had a thing for it in the old days. He was like the sex god, the rock star, the bad boy you shouldn't fall for. But oh my God, I love him. He's such a bad boy. You shouldn't love him. He's one of those ones that you should not love. And Meg is a PA, and she goes over there to work for him. And she's not supposed to fall for him, but you know she's going to. And she is. And then you've got Christian, which is Johnny Jefferson's good boy, best friend. And she knows she should be with a good guy. And it's rock and roll at the highest level. I love this. This is like the best, one of the best books ever. The only reason it's not my favourite is because it's like the last two have just killed me. But this could, any day, I reckon the top three could change my mind. I reckon over time, I reckon the more I read the other two, those sort of top three could change places. But then this book is the one that was in my top books of the year a couple of years ago. This is second most recent, Someone I Used to Know. Again, this captures my heart because it had the fostering element, and as a family we used to foster. And this has, again, got then and now storylines. And this book, again, made me cry. I've only read it twice, and I think I've read Johnny Be Good about 3 or 4 times. But this one made me sob my friggin' heart out. There is something that happens. There is characters that I love. I loved Leah. I loved George. I loved... Oh, and I do love... who is the other one? Leah and George are like the main characters. But then you've got why can I ever remember him? Theo. And you've got all the connecting. The storylines merge really well, the past and the future, and it definitely has like then and now storylines. But I loved Leah's parents, the ones that were foster carers. I loved them so much. And the ending is just amazing. The way they draw it all in, it's just flipping amazeballs. I just can't love it enough. Now, I think this video is coming out after my wrap-up, so it should be alright to say it. But I will say, please read my wrap-up part 1 before you watch this video. Or if you... Others I might give you spoilers, but God, I love this book. This is my Spade Edges one. I hope she does more of the ones with Spade Edges. This is Paige Toon's most recent book, Only Love Can Hurt Like This. And again, I cried. I felt emotional. It was one I read very, very quickly. And it was one that my sister Vicky read in one day, and she got over the moon because Paige Toon actually shared her post on Instagram. So thank you, Paige Toon. I love you if you watch this. And this is about Ren, who, when she realises her fiance is in love with someone else, she thinks her heart will never recover. And so on the other side of the world, Anders lost his wife. So again, this book I've only read once. So she basically goes over, Ren goes over to America to be with her dad that she's not seen, that she's very estranged from, to run away and to get away from the man that broke her heart. And Anders shouldn't fall in love, and it's very sweet, and their friendship is really what's important. And I think I also love the relationship Ren has when she's trying to rebuild her relationship with her half-sister. And I love that so much. And I just think this is just an incredible book. Again, it's really heartbreaking at times, and it does talk about how love can come out and how love can hurt, because you will always do what's best for your partner. So let's see what I can do. Hopefully I will be able to link. You can find out on Instagram. If I can't share the post, share the order, that the publication order in the pictures on the end of this video, I will try and remember to sort of find a way. I will tell you that you can Google it basically on the publication order, but I don't, like I said to you, you don't have to read this in publication order. But that's it. Are there any of these books you want to read? Do you want any information more on these books? Do you want me to do rankings on other favourite authors? I'd love to know in the comments below. If you enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel and not subscribed yet, ring on my ding-a-ling, and I'll see you all soon. Bye bye.